Empowered Health, a podcast shedding light on how healing is an inside job. Keys to your inner power and total transformation. Discussing wholeness, wellness, and the effects of the mind on the physical and energetic parts of our being. A podcast to support you, moving from fear and pain into wellness and purpose. Belief, hope, connection, energetic keystones for transformation and inner power. Sacred knowledge that inspires us to look within, to find our own unique path. Empowered Health, release and rewire to become what you truly are, strong, whole, and empowered.
Welcome to the Empowered Mind, Empowered Health podcast, the keys to empowered and heart-aligned living for the conscious game changers with Dr. Jane. Today we have Mathew Lennon. Mathew is a divine Irish healer who specializes in healing serious illnesses in both humans and animals. Welcome, Mathew.
Thank you.
Mathew, we're going to get into Grace's story. She's here with you, and it's a beautiful example of what you do. But first, let's just talk a little bit about your history and what is divine healing.
Yes, divine healing, of course, is the work with the divine. I'm just a channel for that healing. This particular type of healing has been in my family for many, many years and passed on from male to female. And at the moment, I'm the one in the family who was taken on board to do this divine work. It involves a lifetime of practice. Just the same as an artist or a musician would have to devote most of their life and attention to their work. It's no different for me.
Exactly.
My waking hours are occupied doing this special work. And I deal with serious injury. I deal with animals. And while across Ireland many, many years ago, you would have healers who would do simple cures like warts and ringworms and stop the bleeding and cure leg ulcers or whatever. While I can do all of this, but my role has taken perhaps a different route, a more serious route. And I'm sure from our Facebook page, if you checked, there's about 1,000 videos there, all with patients with different problems. From, I suppose, very simple injury to very, very complicated problems, like brain injury. And this is difficult work, very difficult. Very few people can do this, and this sounds as if I'm blowing my own trumpet, but no. I decided a few years ago that my job took a serious route. And I suppose success came in many different parts of the world where I worked. And during my work, I noticed that people with more serious illness was contacting me, approaching me. And my success in that department was very, very interesting, even for me. The feedback that I got from patients with serious illness, I suppose, was instrumental in me pushing further and deeper into the healing world. For example, I do my own diagnosis, as you probably know. And often medics will find this very, very difficult to understand, how someone can just tune in to a patient and say, give a breakdown on the person's wellness or injury or health or whatever. This is one of the abilities that I have that will just, one of the tools that gives me insight into what I need to do with a patient. I suppose medicine and research these days are looking into the auric field, the etheric field, the electromagnetic sheath that surrounds the body and is the emanation from the activity or action of the cell. I suppose the Russians are forerunners in this with Kirlian photography. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Kirlian photography, but those of you who are interested will find that a machine that's sensitive enough to pick up the radiations from the body, the electromagnetic sheath that surrounds the body. If you have a machine that's sensitive enough to pick up that, it can show you colors which will perhaps show that an organ is functioning or malfunctioning. This, I suppose, can be done these days with modern diagnosis, and humans can do this also, and I am one of those.
Yeah, I read a book by Barbara Brennan when I was in my teens, and she was a NASA scientist who could see the electromagnetic field, the aura, and would diagnose in this way. And so to me, it makes complete sense. And Thrive 2 has come out showing how everything, there is this field within us and also around the planet, and how there's a unified field and how it stretches out into the universe. So they're starting with Nassim Haramein. He's done a lot of research like this. So they're starting to talk about it, which is
very good.
Wonderful.
But this practice has been used for hundreds of years.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's been completely ignored. We use X-ray, which is brilliant, and MRI. Well, MRI is magnetic resonance. We're talking about an electromagnetic field. And surely there is equipment that can pick up those rays and make a diagnosis of the complete body. For example, the liver has a different function to other organs, and it resonates on a frequency, a certain frequency. And if you can pick up that frequency and tell whether there are malfunctions or disease or what have you that will show on a screen, you have pinpoint accuracy, as I'm sure with other scans as well. But again, if we can change the vibration, the disease, if we can change that vibration to a healthy one by using another apparatus, then the liver or organ perhaps can be repaired. Maybe this is something for scientists in the future, but this is my work, or part, I beg your pardon, of my work. I would tune in to someone and feel that maybe the patient has told me that, it's my eyes that are bothering me. And I would make a quick scan of the body and say, well, look, maybe it's your diabetes, or maybe it's alimentary canal, or maybe it's your big toe, or maybe it's your thumb that's causing. And so I would work on the areas that I needed to. I believe that at the present stage, that equipment out there can be devised, and maybe has been, that will do all this kind of work instead of depending on extrasensory perception, which everyone doesn't have. Everyone, of course, doesn't have the ability to paint a lovely picture or to play the piano or to produce music. And I think that those specialists or specialists in any field have to resonate on a frequency to be able to do that. It's great that scientists have made huge progress over the years in diagnosing disease. But then there should be, and perhaps is, different methods of treating it. While the medics would use drugs and radium and chemo and different forms of healing, mine would take a different route. It would be in the form of vibration. Often, when I would work with someone, they would feel maybe sick afterwards. They would find that they would be completely exhausted, tired, sleep maybe for a day or two, and this would be the change that would take place from the work I do.
It's part of healing.
I beg your pardon?
It's part of healing often when, when someone feels tired afterwards, it's because their body is releasing.
A crisis.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Recovery time.
Yeah. Very good. And I am fascinated by how it's passed down in your family. So from male to female. So you there was a female before that
that passed along to me, yes. And this has been the traditional form with all different types of healings or healers throughout Ireland, because some going back as far as biblical times and some of the healing methods, that were used, including herbs and energy healing was used hundreds and thousands of years ago, going back to the Druids and others.
Mm-hmm.
People often criticize and say, look, energy healing doesn't work, acupuncture doesn't work.
Homeopathy doesn't work.
Homeopathy, yeah, kinesiology. But look, it doesn't work for everyone, but it does for some. And it does for those who are tuned into it. And of course, the person receiving the healing has to be open to receive it.
Well, it's part of vibration. Yeah, it's part of vibration, right? Like you have to be willing and open and of a certain vibration, possibly.
And this is why I find that working with young children and animals, very, very easy. There are no blockages. They haven't been contaminated or influenced by the elders, and therefore they're quite open. Often children just fall asleep within minutes. Animals also, they're so relaxed and they fall asleep. And of course, this is part of the healing, the relaxation, so that the body can receive the healing. Over the years, I've worked maybe from 7 in the morning until 12 o'clock at night, seeing a lot of people. On open days, we would see maybe a couple of hundred people. And some would say, well, look, do you not feel exhausted after all that? And no, I don't. Well, I do a little bit now because I'm heading for 80. So throughout the years, I could work with hundreds of people and not feel the effects, because I am not doing the job. The good Lord is doing it. I'm doing my job as a channel. And the healing, the divine healing, is coming from source. Some would say, look, I can only do 5 or 10. How does one do this? And I can't teach anyone how to do this job. It has to be passed in the family from male to female and female to male. That's how it's been. That's how all healings, old traditional healing in Ireland was used. There are, of course, other systems or types like Seventh Son or Seventh Sons. They have healing gifts as well. But one person in my family will take over.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
So interesting. So Mathew, do you remember back to when you first felt it or first tried? Like what the feeling was in your body, how you knew?
Well, I suppose it's like someone growing up with mom and dad, or in a particular profession or whatever. And some of the kids are tuned in to that particular profession or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so one grows with it. There are certain times that I suppose one would get a gut feeling. And I suppose everyone gets gut feelings depending on their sensitivity, but in my case, it would be that I know in some cases what a person is going to say or do, maybe. And I suppose this is something that when you practice and continue with it on a daily basis, that you develop quickly, and maybe these are the tools that are necessary for me to do the job. In my case, they are.
Yeah.
And so people are often shocked when I say, well, look, you've had a problem 5 years ago and it was so-and-so, so-and-so. And this problem that you went through is now instrumental in your health at the present time. This is a knowing, and it's really difficult to explain that knowing.
Yeah. Awesome. And, you know, as you talk about children and animals, I find them the easiest to heal too. It's like turning a small boat. It's very easy to retune them, you know, but as we get older, things become more chronic. We become more stuck in our minds. And so often then it's a longer process. It's, you know, we need to be retuned. Like even with homeopathy, you need to redose more often and for a longer period of time. Is it the same with you?
Yes, of course. But you know, I find that working with animals, particularly horses, dogs, cats, what have you, they immediately know and can identify. I think we worked with a horse the other day, and he was very fidgety and agitated, and when we started to work with him, he started to settle down, and you know, when the lady went in to take him out, he was always agitated and wanting to go, and when I started to work with him, he immediately started to pick at his hay and was satisfied to work with us. Horses have an extrasensory perception as well as all animals do.
Yeah.
I suppose we humans have forgotten about this. Humans, I suppose, we live in a materialistic world. We have to go out there and be at work at a certain time and do a certain job and what have you. And so our minds are working in a different direction. We're removed from nature. And we even remove ourselves more from nature by insulating ourselves from the good earth, by wearing our rubber-soled shoes and living upstairs and what have you. If we were to be healthy, we'd have to whip off the shoes and maybe go out into the park or into the fields or whatever and walk around and feel and get the radiations and the vibrations from the earth. As an example, if you have a car battery and there's only one polarity or one pole, you get no light and no ignition. It needs a positive and a negative in order to complete the circuit. And so, for health reasons, people should go out into the parks or into the fields or whatever and take off the shoes and what have you, and absorb the energies from the good earth. And if you need to ask your doctor about that, I'm sure he'll give you good advice as well.
Well, they've coined it. There's a term now. It's called grounding, because there's some science to the positive and negative and the ions that flow and how important it is. But yes, we've been cut off from these things, and even giving away our power to something else, and often just relying on drugs, which can destroy even further, or, you know, they can help or for a period of time, but we need to take back and increase our own vibration, and then tools like yours can be used so much more successfully.
Yeah, but we can take our own vibrations back by grounding ourselves and starting with the positive. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Chinese, the Indians, the Tibetans, and what have you got out in the parks and did their wushu and tai chi and Shuquan or whatever, and they practiced and contacted the good earth.
Yeah, in their bare feet.
In the bare feet. Very good. Yes. Yes.
So it's so powerful. Yeah.
But also, of course, we need to take the proper food. You wouldn't expect your diesel car to run on water. It wouldn't go. And you wouldn't expect the body to run on the wrong type of fuel. And what is the wrong type of fuel? Well, our food is now processed. The vibrations have changed. We're eating junk and expecting our bodies to perform.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
Well, it lowers vibration again, doesn't it?
Indeed, indeed. And some of the food that we're taking at the moment is poison. Poisoned with pesticides and insecticides and herbicides and whatever. Our water table is polluted. The air is polluted with poisons from whatever, toxic fumes. So our health is at stake. But we need to take it on board ourselves to do something here in a positive way to regenerate our health, to address our health. We have to look what's on the label. Is this good or is it poison? We have huge problems with obesity and people just feeding emotion without thinking what are the contents of what we're taking on board food-wise. You know, junk food causing obesity across the world. When are we going to address this? When are we going to have a look at TV programs that will give advice to those who have problems, health problems? Why are we taking so much sugar on board? You know, over here in Ireland, you go to the store and you want to buy a pot of jam. And it's 78% sugar.
Yeah, and all the fruit, there's very little fruit even in it. And don't you think it comes back to, like you said, emotional eating? And to me, it all goes back to not being connected to the earth and not getting a source of energy and vibration and joy from our environment, and we're looking for it outside ourselves.
Yes, of course, instead of looking within. But then on the other hand, do we have the time to look within? Everyone can't spend as much time as I do at my work because I separate and segregate myself in order to do it. I have to. People have to go to work early in the morning to drop the kids off, to pick them up, and their day is very, very busy, and they just fall into bed at 10 o'clock at night or whatever, and there's no time to devote to developing themselves. And so everything is rushed. Digestion is upset. We can't absorb the proper nutrients from our food when we have to dash all over the place and be there, so to speak, at specific times. Worry, anxiety, and what have you was a huge problem in our life.
Yeah, we get on this hamster wheel trying to achieve something and leaves us no time to go inside and connect to our environment. And
Yeah.
It's a problem.
But I think a lot of people out there should just simply take on board that we ground ourselves, go out into the park, take off the shoes for 10 or 15 minutes every day, and you will find that your health will improve. You will find that you absorb the currents from the good earth, which have been insulated by wearing shoes and insulated because of tarmac and concrete.
Yeah, I've known myself, if I'm in a very agitated state or if there's physical pain, just laying on the earth has helped.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. But you're sensitive. You're in the field of medicine, perhaps, and where you can, you have a knowledge of how to do this. People need to be educated. People need to go back to basics. And we need to have a look at our food, organic food. I mean, we can't expect the body to function properly when we're taking in sprays and insecticides and pesticides. The bees on our planet are virtually extinct. Why? They've been poisoned.
Yeah. And it's all about creating more wealth for what, and more food, why? And yeah, because we're destroying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so a species that has lived for an insignificant span of time has now been destroyed because they've been poisoned. And so if we get enough of this poison, bee poison, shall we say, into our bodies, it will have serious side effects on humans as well.
It has to, yeah. But just to be aware of these things, I'm afraid, is really important. And I recommend saunas to help detox, but it needs to be done often, laying on the earth, eating the right.
Yes, of course, and to release the toxicity from the body and in the form of perspiration or whatever. Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. But we need to put the right fuel into the body as well in order to make it function properly.
And we need to stop doing the damage that's happening in the first place.
Of course.
Stop.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Our seas are polluted. The fish is dying from poison, from plastic or whatever. But of course, it's difficult to change all of this. People need to have an awareness to stand up and be counted. But then again, like we said earlier, it's very difficult to be involved in world affairs or current affairs or anything when you're overloaded with a mortgage and 2 cars and 2 kids and a dog and the garden to be maintained. It's very, very difficult to devote attention.
But still, I think change on a world scale happens within each of us.
Yes, yes, it does.
Taking responsibility for our own health and our own vibration, and that will ripple out and cause other change.
Well,
and
I'm glad
we'll have the energy to do it.
Yes, and I'm glad that you are one of those who is striving to improve our life on Earth.
Yes, thank you. Let's go to Grace's story, because it's such a beautiful story of what you do, and she's here beside you. So I'd love to hear that.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello. Thanks for having me on. Where would you like to start with what Mathew did
Well, you
for
were
me? Or
you were very sick, weren't you? When you almost had no choice, and then you found Mathew. Like
yeah,
you,
so I was sent home to die.
yeah.
Yeah, after over 10 years of being with the medics, I was with consultants all over Ireland and abroad. I was diagnosed with many different conditions, but I suppose if I take you back to the beginning of my journey, it might make it easier.
Yeah. So, yeah, tell us about that.
I suppose I was super fit at one stage in my life. I played a lot of sport. I trained every day, and I developed shin splints. And the only option we had at the time was to have an operation, is what the consultants told me. So at 19, we decided that I would undergo compartment syndrome on both legs. So they basically opened up my shin and they removed the fascia that supports or holds the calf muscle together on both legs. Yeah. So unfortunately, all I wanted to do was get back playing sport as quickly as I could. So this was the only option available at the time. So we decided to go for it. The operation was done, and unfortunately, it wasn't a success. So I was back playing top level sport 3 months later, and that didn't happen. I suppose developed a huge amount of problems after that operation. I developed stomach problems, which then I developed kidney problems. With the stomach problems, I wasn't able to eat any food. Eating food became a difficult task. I was getting sick every time I had some food. Then I developed kidney problems, which they thought I actually had a tumor on my kidneys. So because of all the extent of the injuries after the operation, and when I tried to get fit or try to exercise again, they sent me for more scans, and an MRI showed up a tumor on my kidneys. But after a week or more of serious tests, they decided that it must have been just an artifact on the scan, that actually we don't think you have a tumor on your kidney, but we've no idea what's wrong and what's causing all your problems. So during this time, I lost nearly 2 stone in weight, and the cycle of tests started from there. So it went from being sent home with no idea after being told they had a tumor, that there was nothing there, and then I developed lung problems after that, and I had a series of tests again. So I was in and out of hospital for a very long time. They told me that the infections were there was too much infection in my lung, that they didn't know where it was or what was causing the problem, but they just knew that there was infections there. So I did various different treatments. I was also diagnosed with chronic kidney disease. After that, they diagnosed me with what Jono Lomo had. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the All Blacks rugby player. No? Well, he was diagnosed with the same problem, but he's since passed away of kidney failure. So I was stopped from all sport and did a series of medication and treatments for kidney disease. I was sent on my merry way again to say, we don't know what's causing the rest of your problems. And yeah, would you like to ask any questions?
Well, yeah, it sounds like a downhill spiral. Like you were probably emotionally distraught over what happened and you couldn't continue with sport, which lowers your vibration. And then maybe there was like a mix of meds and your body was sensitive to it and just couldn't produce it properly. Have you ever thought through any of that? Or
I suppose I didn't start medication really until they diagnosed me with chronic kidney disease. And that's when the series of medication and trial medication began for me.
right.
So yeah, after they diagnosed me with kidney disease, I started the treatment for that. They then stopped me after a couple of months of that treatment. and brought me back in for a series of more tests. So I spent weeks on end in hospital going through a series of tests. They thought I had liver failure. They told me I was going to have a horrible death. I think I was only 23. To be told that is a bit of a shock. To be then told a month later that actually, sorry, we think we've given you the wrong results. You're not going to die of liver failure this time.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
To be sent back to another consultant who then brought me in thinking that I had clots on my lungs. I sent through a series of tests for that. I was brought into a hospital in Dublin, brought down to do a VO2 max on a bike, which they couldn't actually test the oxygen levels on my hands because I was really cold and struggling to breathe. So he actually put my hands into 2 cups of boiling water and still couldn't read my own oxygen level. So he read his own. And he then sent back in my results as being that they were okay, that I was clear on that test. They also found a blockage on my heart. And nothing ever happened on the blockage on my heart either. So I was sent home again, out of hospital. Still the same. I was actually just declining health-wise and wasn't able to do much at this point. And then I was diagnosed with a thyroid problem. So eventually, after about 8 or 9 years, I was sent to a specialist who had, I suppose, semi-retired from the hospital, but took me on as a private case. And the first time I met him, he told me straight away, look, I think you have a thyroid problem. So we sent our test to France, and he was correct. And he was probably the most accurate consultant I have ever met. Basically, what was wrong was my T3. I had reversed T3, so it was blocking the production of T4, and in turn was shutting down my organs.
Ah, yeah.
So he maintained actually that a lot of athletes were experiencing this problem, and that the medics didn't know enough about it at the time. But this consultant was in his late 80s, at 90 at this stage. So he was actually in the middle of writing a book to educate the doctors on the importance of thyroid, because so many athletes were dying of sudden death. He maintained that the problem was actually coming from the thyroid originally and causing the heart to stop. So he stopped me from everything immediately because of sudden death. He told me if I did any activity at all that I would die there and then on the spot. So he started me on a course of treatment. But I think at this stage I was very, very ill. The treatment wasn't making a huge difference to me, so he wanted to do a series of more tests. And eventually I was diagnosed then in Germany with chronic Lyme disease and 10 co-infections, 8 co-infections, sorry. And I started a series of medication there, which was IV every second day and 28 tablets a day plus whatever painkillers I was taking on top of that.
Wow.
So I did that treatment for, a number of months. And at this stage, I really wasn't able to eat much. And so I was diagnosed in the May, I became 30 in the September. And before my 30th birthday, my consultant in Dublin told me that I was on a maintenance program at that stage. And he wanted me to stop all treatment. They didn't know how long I would actually survive for. I wasn't able to walk very far on my own. I had 24-hour care. I wasn't able to intake any food, really. I would physically get sick. I'd just not be able to take it. I suppose I had so much medication on board that my stomach just wasn't in any state for food. My shortness of breath was severe, that I would need support. So my parents would have to link me if we needed to go anywhere. And I basically spent most of my time at home, being cared for by my parents. So they wanted to admit me into hospital, but unfortunately, my health insurance didn't cover the highest premium. So to admit me into hospital, it was going to be a 5,000 deposit and €1,500 a night just for bread and breakfast. So my parents actually had to do all of this treatment at home. So they had to learn to become medics, and they had to learn how to give me IV treatment every second day. And that's how we managed.
Wow.
And then unfortunately, the Germans took me off all treatment. At this time, actually, 6 years ago, about this time, they told me that if I had any more treatment, that I would have a heart attack on the spot and would die there and then. So my mother had to sleep in the same bed as me in case I died in the middle of the night.
And so this was very dire.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And then how did you meet Mathew?
I suppose, in dire straits, and as you have spoken, I suppose previously, you're talking about patients taking things into their own hands. We never gave up on the fact that I would just die. We never took that on board, that was the only option that I had. I suppose from my sporting days, I was very determined. And I wanted to look at every option. But thankfully, my mum decided to go to a doctor one day because she was struggling with the idea of the fact that I was dying, and that all the work, I suppose, and care that she was giving me wasn't paying off in their eyes. So she went into a doctor, and she told her my story, and this person wasn't actually treating me. And she took out Mathew's name and number. And do you know the prescriptions, the way they're printed out now? Mm-hmm. The person wrote Mathew's name and number on the back of that prescription and said, if this man can't help her, nobody will. Mm-hmm. I wasn't there, so Mom contacted me straight away. She said, look, I've been given this number of a healer. Will you try him, or what do you want to do? And I rang Mathew straight away. I was like, what have I got to lose? I've no time left here. We'll do everything we can to fight this. And I rang Mathew, and he knew everything, I suppose, I was going through. He knew all the medication I was on, and we had a long chat on the phone. And that was a Friday. And on the Monday, I had my first treatment. So I suppose to describe how it really was when I attended Mathew first, I would have been helped into his clinic. I would have been freezing with the cold, wrapped up with, I suppose, nearly a blanket and a woolly hat over my head, and slumped over a chair when I got into the clinic. That I suppose people are looking and staring as to, I looked, I suppose, anorexic. I was only 6 stone, and I wasn't really able to communicate very well. And the noise in the room or anything just was too much for me to handle. So they actually went and got Mathew and just asked him, would he take me in ahead of them? They were afraid that I was going to die in front of them. So, and I had been told just after that, I had met somebody that was there that night, my first appointment, and they said that they were a nurse, or there was a nurse there present that night, and on their experience, they said that I wouldn't survive the night. So the people there that day weren't expecting me back for a second appointment.
But you did get back for a second appointment. You're healthy today. Yes.
Yeah.
So, what was the experience like?
Yeah. What was the experience like when I went in? Very different. I suppose I wasn't able for much. Mathew went through my history. It was very interesting because without telling him that I had a procedure, he told me and was able to tell me that I had a procedure, and it obviously didn't work out very well. But the consultants always told me that the operation was a success. And apparently now, some physio friends of mine have told me that they no longer actually do that operation because it doesn't work. So whether I was a guinea pig or not at that time, I'm not sure. But Mathew told me when we went in on my first appointment, he also asked me, would I jog on the spot? Now, bearing in mind, it was hardly able to walk, but I did it. And yeah, I suppose, how would you describe how it was?
Well, I suppose your story there has given a pretty in-depth analysis of your condition. Your professor, Austin Dara, told you were in organ failure due to reversed T3.
Yeah, but my thyroid had been tested for years. Every time I was in and out of hospital or with the doctors, it always came back perfect. But there was never a problem with it. And lo and behold, I was actually in organ failure because of my thyroid.
Well, I suppose one of the reasons why you were in organ failure. But your story, accurate as it is, has really never been told because the media won't take it. We've done 2 radio interviews.
Yeah.
And they were cut instantly.
Yeah.
You did something with the press?
Yeah, it was meant to be the front cover of a health magazine, of a national paper. And the paper actually sent a journalist out. They interviewed me, did the whole story, and the whole story is quite long and detailed. And they sent a photographer out. We did everything, and I got a phone call the day before it was going to print to say that the powers to be had pulled everything. It wasn't allowed out there.
I wonder why.
Yeah, huge red flags. What's going on today? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but I suppose I'm glad in one way that I took matters into my own hands. I was on a huge amount of medication, could barely think for myself, to be honest. Holding a conversation was difficult. The pain was incredible and no sleep. So when you're in that state where you're too sick to even sleep at night, and the days and nights all just rolled into one for me, it's very hard to know where to go. You're listening to experts. Like, we were called into a meeting to be told, stop everything. You're not going to make it. Go out there, have a cup of coffee, and come back in. And at this stage, I wasn't able to pick myself off the chair, let alone go out for a coffee, to be left there for 2 to 3 hours to come back in to say, what's your choice?
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
But maybe you should just mention here, if it's okay, about your cardiologist. When you spoke with him, we had planned doing a television documentary or interview with, and they wanted 3 of us on board.
Mm-hmm.
Your consultant and both of us to give our a full account of the story, and
from all aspects. And I was approached to do it. I suppose a TV presenter who has his own show actually approached me and said, look, I want to be the first person to air your story. Can I do it? But the way I want to do it is with all 3. And I said, that's fine, but I'd have to ask the other 2 gentlemen. Now, my consultant didn't know I was alive. He actually had just retired, and he had sent me home to die. So it was just to happen at home with my parents. So I texted him one day when there was a small article done in the paper, and I texted his mobile and said, buy today's paper. And I sent him the paper, and he met me for a coffee, and he just said, I cannot believe you are alive. He just said there was nothing the medics could have ever done for you.
Right.
You had retired at this stage.
Yeah. So it's pretty indisputable. Yeah. So guys, how long did it take? Like, how many, you must have been with Mathew for a period of time and just recovered over time, but you are vibrant and healthy today. I can see you and your big smile and full of life.
Thank you. I suppose we put in a program. I knew it wasn't going to happen quickly. Well, obviously, naturally, I wanted it to happen quickly, and I wanted to go in and come out running. I know on the first day in Ireland, we play football, Gaelic football, and I wanted to get back playing. And I think the first question I asked was, if we got to a final, would I be able to play? So this was like going to be months later. Even though the medics had given me days, a couple of weeks to live at the most. So we put in a program, didn't we?
Yeah.
When was...
You came as often as you could, and the whole emphasis now, I suppose, looking at it in retrospect, every evening or day, you ask me, will I be able to play in the county final or whatever?
Yeah.
And you did.
I did. So I went 3 and 4 days a week until...
No, I didn't do 4. Did you do 3 and 4 sometimes? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we did 3 and 4 days.
Yeah.
Old age, I think.
Yeah.
So we did 3 4 days
a
week.
A lot of patience.
Yeah. 3 and 4 days a week, I suppose, until I got where I wanted to be. Yeah. And that was coming on and playing in a county final, which for me was a dream come true.
Absolutely.
Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all positive from the day I started my treatment with Mathew. I gave up on my medication myself. So I did have one of those large IKEA bags full of medication, and I came home one evening and decided for myself that this was going into the fire, and I had had enough. There was no more to be taken, and my parents looked at me and agreed, said, yeah, that's fine, it's your decision. So thousands and thousands of euro worth of medication went into the fire, and I never looked back after that moment.
Including,
I had PICC lines that went...
So you've never had to take thyroid meds or anything since?
No, this is obviously nothing got to do with Mathew, or he never suggested anything. It was my own choice.
Right.
I took it all on myself and decided this was the route I was going to take, and I was going to give everything a go with Mathew, and we do it 120% if I had to. And I didn't care if I had to crawl or what way we had to go. We never missed an appointment. I was always brought, didn't matter how sick I was, we always made it. Because we knew that this was my only hope.
Yeah.
From the first day we met, Mathew and myself, my mum turned around and said, we have it now. So this is what we have to do to get me back.
Yeah, and even from the first appointment, you must have seen improvement. You must have felt, that it was helping.
I suppose, yeah. But and talking to Mathew or listening to him, I knew he knew and he understood exactly what I had been through. He knew everything about my case, more so than I had ever heard in all of the years. So I was very confident going home. Now, I was very sick after every treatment. I didn't know if I was actually going to die after his sessions or what was going to happen, but I always thought it was a positive. Every reaction that I had, I was like, all right, I have to get through this to improve.
Yeah, it's part of the healing.
Yeah, and it was bad, but you always knew you were going to come out of it.
Yeah, I think that's...
But you mentioned, Jane, you mentioned there you never take any medication for your thyroid. And my reply to all of that is, let your food be your medicine.
Yeah, I was just pointing out that Grace did throw all medical, like that was your choice, but you healed.
I had done 10 years.
But you've healed enough that you don't need it, is the point I was making. And right? And I love and I love Mathew, you're always saying food is your medicine. And we need to And we need to be
But
aware. Yeah, go ahead.
Another interesting point was, as Mathews alluded to earlier, about his diagnosis of a patient. Actually, it was probably a couple of weeks into my treatment with Mathew. It was quite early on. I had horrendous pain in my chest area, which I always had. And we took it as part of everything else that was going on, but nobody actually looked at it. And Mathew actually told me, you need to go back to the medics. There is a problem in your chest. But he told me that there was a lump, and I did have a breast lump, and it was actually 3.5 centimeters.
Yeah.
So on Mathew's advice, went back up to the medics. I was in oncology every week anyway, because I had the PICC lines in my arm for the IV treatment. So I went back in, and 3 doctors were rushed down to meet me because I was so sick at this stage, and they knew I was dying. And they told me that there was a breast lump there, and it was very serious, and that it was 3.5 centimeters. And they wanted to start everything there and then, but I suppose I made the choice to come home, and they wrote out a letter for my own GP to start the process off straight away. And to this day, my GP never seen that letter.
Your consultant in America?
Yeah, my consultant was in America at the time, and they on holidays, because this is around Christmas time, and they wanted to ring him to see, look, will we keep her or what will we do with her? And I said, no, leave him be. He's on holidays, and I'll deal with what I have to do. So just write the letter for me, and we'll take it, because all these tests were going to be another 350, 550, and so on, straight away immediately that day. So, and bearing in mind, I had already spent 100,000 plus to date. So being told you're dying and to spend more money, what was the point in putting me through treatment? Like, I wasn't going to survive it. I'd just been stopped on another treatment because I was going to have a heart attack. So I came back to Mathew and I said, look, can we give this a go? And we'll see what happens. And after about, was it 4 or 5 weeks?
5.
5, the lump was completely gone and never returned. So.
Yeah, that's something.
Doesn't happen for everyone, but it does for some.
Well, yeah, and it sounds like Grace was also at a place where I think we call it surrender, because she'd been through all of that, and she was surrendering to something, and really wanting to heal, which is.
Well, I suppose it's a life and death situation, and you obviously realized where you were, and you couldn't walk, you couldn't talk,
No.
You couldn't eat.
No.
You were in organ failure.
Yeah.
And so the situation was desperate.
Mm.
And I suppose she realized that, rather than just handing you gun.
Yeah.
It decided that, look, there's something positive here, and maybe.
But I never handed in my gun.
No.
Throughout the whole time, and throughout all of the knockbacks I had of, if this is all in your head, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. We'll give you medication for antidepressants. I refused to take them, wouldn't take them. Knew that there was something else going on. And even had the people in the community would say it, or you would hear it back going, well, if the medics don't know what's wrong with her, like, what's wrong? And I knew, like, I was failing every single day. So I suppose I'm thankful that I had the mental strength or endurance that I think I developed from a very young age playing sport. I played sport at a high level from a very young age, and I was training and playing with older people, and it kind of, I suppose, toughened you up mentally. You were breaking barriers that and training really hard that I suppose a lot of people maybe don't do, and you just had to get through it no matter how much you were pushed. And I equated my illness to the same. And I think that's what drove me along all those years. And I suppose obviously I had the support of my family as well, who never gave up. We tried everything, and we would have went to the end of the earth just to survive. And if I had met Mathew a number of years ago, I wouldn't have had the operation, because he told me that he would have been able to fix my shins within 3 sessions. So
Right. Just starting that.
Yeah. So you live and learn.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, of course, after that or during that procedure, you were in hospital for some time, and if you want to pick up MRSA or C. diff or whatever, I mean, the hospitals at the time were really overcrowded, and were finding it difficult to, maintain a reasonable standard. And so
And they're never going to admit any of that. So you come out being told, yeah, that was a success. Tick the box, on you go. And I went into that operation super healthy, super fit. The only problem I had was the pains in my legs and the swelling that I couldn't play sport. But health-wise, I was fine. To come out and to just suddenly start to deteriorate was devastating.
Yeah. And years of.
I'm sure that some of your listeners will say, well, what did this guy do? And how did he heal her? And what process did she have to go through? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we used herbs for some of the malfunctions, like can I mention names of herbs?
Oh yeah. Yeah, as long as people realize it's individual for each of them. Like this isn't.
Yes, of course, right? Of course. And I always say that never take herbs or anything without the advice of your doctor.
Yeah.
And of course, each herbs are used for individual purposes for the individual. And for urinary, which was a problem here, we used motherwort. And we used artemisia as well, which is for, as you know, wormwood. And did we use other herbs as well for stomach? I think we used Sliperiellum, which to neutralize the high acidity and keep the pH to 7. And these herbs, of course, were recommended by me for Gracie's illness. We used others as well, but one should never go out and take herbs without, or medicine, of course, without the advice of the doctor. So, we
have to include that. But yes, and that's the healing power of nature, isn't it? It's provided on this planet, the most amazing plants. And so this was a combination of you doing your healing work and also healing with herbs and food, I'm sure, as well.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And it's, how can one get nutrients and minerals from food that's so highly processed and, junk food doesn't supply us with the energy that our body needs in order to maintain health. So have a look at your foods.
Yeah.
I suppose that's where I lacked. I couldn't eat anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So taking in food was difficult.
Yeah. Well, often if herbs are, if they're processed or made in nature properly, they do carry a very high vibration, and they can
Yes.
be very direct in what they do.
Yes, of course. I think even the Bible states that anything that we need to heal the body is within arm's reach. And so if we go out there and pick some herbs, and obviously you've got to get advice from the herbalist or from your doctor, otherwise you don't know what you're doing and take the perhaps the wrong stuff and poison yourself.
Yeah.
So
You have to know which one.
get advice.
Yeah.
Yes, get advice.
Well, yeah, exactly. I love what you said about it being within arm's reach. And it's amazing how dandelions come up in the spring, and that's what we need to cleanse the liver.
Yes.
And, you know.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And it opens the spleen as well. Dandelions are one of the best, as you obviously know. Brilliant to open the liver and the spleen. They're actually one of the herbs, one of the great herbs. And they're out there for everyone to pick, you know. And
yet when our lawns are covered with them, are covered with them and they're screaming, pick me, everyone sprays them with pesticides and destroys the dandelions. Just sum up the the state of our thinking, right?
Well, you know, if people are brainwashed, then it's very difficult to change that mindset. Again, going back to the busy schedule people have, they want to just cut the lawn and forget about the dandelions. They're just weeds and in the wrong place. So, and hawthorns, of course. Hawthorn is used quite a lot. But again, one must check out what they're taking. That is important.
Yeah, but we need to empower ourselves too and learn how to use these herbs and, you know, learn about what they can do and seek out information. You know, I was listening when you said that we are brainwashed. I was listening to Bruce Lipton a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how from the age of 0 to 7, our subconscious only records what we've learned, and at those times when we get sick, we've been so programmed to run out to a doctor. You know, as little kids, we're bundled up and off we go to the doctor, and so we've been programmed that that's what we need to do, and at times it is, but at many times there's things that we could do ourselves.
Yes, of course. Yeah, sure.
Well, that's interesting because Mathew treated a little boy who was 3 at the time, and he was non-verbal.
Oh, yeah.
And every time Mathew treated him, the little boy got very, very sick. He would be sick for a couple of days after each treatment. But he was able to know quickly when his parents would bring him up to Mathew at an open day. He would go, "Oh no, I'm sick already, I'm sick." Straight away, without even having started the treatment, that's the first thing he would say when he seen Mathew.
Yeah. But what's happening?
He was only 2 actually, 2.5 at that stage.
Yeah.
But he was non-verbal at that particular time.
Yeah.
And now?
Now he's doing speech and drama. He's speaking clearly. He's perfect.
We have a video up there, I think. Is it?
Yeah. He was able to sing "Happy Birthday" to Mathew on a previous birthday.
Yeah.
And but even Mathew did some work from a distance on him. He ran into a car door. Somebody opened a car door as he was running, and they didn't see him, and it just smacked him. But as Matthew worked on him, he was actually able to pick up that he was working on him from a distance. And what did he say?
He felt the energy.
Yeah, yeah.
At 3 or 4, he felt the energy.
And the electricity.
Electricity, I think he described it as. Which,
at that age.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, of course, I'm better because Matthew worked on me.
Yeah.
And that was his attitude, as if to say, there's a stupid question.
Yeah.
Well.
But I think it's important for people to realize too that you do, when the body needs to discharge, it feels like illness, but it's actually a good thing.
Yes, of course. I suppose the old saying, you have to get worse before you get better, and this is the body throwing off the toxin, the toxicity that maybe should be evacuated without healing, but the healing crisis kicks in when the vibrations are directed towards that person.
Yeah.
And, you know, imagine the state of your body when you were in organ failure. Nothing was working.
No, nothing was functioning.
And you couldn't hardly take a breath.
No.
And the pain was horrendous.
Yeah, horrendous. Yeah. On the scale of 11 out of 10, 12 out of 10, it was so bad.
Yeah.
I couldn't touch my face, my hands, any part of my body really. So, but that is probably one of the first things I did notice. I couldn't take a breath. The yawn was a very difficult task for me. And I think it was either a few days or a week after I was with Mathew, I think it was a few days. I was just sitting at home, and I yawned for the first time without suffering or pain and with ease. And to me, that was the start of the miracle process.
Yeah.
It was huge. Yeah. To catch a breath was very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Well, I can understand the difficulty that some people would have in listening to this story. You know, this guy doesn't give you pills as such. What does he do? This would be, I'm sure, a question that some of your patients would ask. And supposing that we had a conference here with a number of consultants or doctors to openly discuss our healing program, and what would they say? How would they respond, do you think, to Gracie's story? They say a first question would be perhaps, well, how do you repair an organ that's diseased? No one can do this. Well, no one has approached us to discuss all of this. Anytime we try to discuss or put it out there, it's blocked.
But we did have a consultant come to one of our open days, which there may have been 200, 250 there, and he sat at the back of the room, and his wife actually had a stroke, and Mathew helped her with that. And
we had a walking.
Yeah, he had a walking, And he just said at the end of the room, when it was coming kind of close to the end of the day, and he just said, I've been sitting here all day and I can't believe the number of patients he has seen. Everybody had something different wrong with them. And he was like, for a consultant to do that, we would need 3 ballrooms of consultants to deal with the number of patients that he dealt with today.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't explain it. He just didn't know how to put it into words to evaluate.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect him. It's not his job but as an onlooker, we were dealing with, on an open day, maybe 200 or 300 patients, and all in an open forum, and those with serious problems were throwing away the sticks or crutches and what have you.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but some.
Yeah. Well, we know that the seed contains all the information for the full tree, and that the tree actually grows into that energetic form. So it makes sense that through energy and directed energy and the right vibration, that we could restore the energy of an organ, or allow it to grow back into health, into its original state. I wish that science would be looking at these things, and interviewing you and trying to find out what is it that it's.
But why won't they let my story go out there?
Right? Yeah. And everyone has to start questioning these things. Why? And asking for it to be told.
Well, my daughter is a scientist, and she does biomedical diagnostics and what have you. And when we spoke about it, she said that, look, science hasn't reached where you are at the moment.
I think, but I suspect science, there is more knowledge out there than we know, and that
yes, there is.
Yeah, but that it's being used for certain purposes, but not to actually help most of mankind. That's just that's one of my suspicions, but I don't know for sure.
But it's selling sickness.
Yeah. And I think that all of us have to feel what it feels like to be of a higher vibration, and to want to have this information become known, because we would have a different planet.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we would. Yes.
And you're very caring, and I've seen your work, and I would encourage anyone to reach out to Mathew. How did they get hold of you, Mathew?
Well,
you're on Facebook.
That's a little bit difficult at the moment, and I think Gracie deals with this aspect of it more than I. I devote my attention more to the healing side, but Gracie will tell you about how to contact us and the difficulty that we're having in that field as well.
So there was a reason he saved my life. Answer all the calls.
So,
we have a website, MathewLennonHealer.com. We have our Facebook page, which is Mathew Lennon Healer. But at the moment, we seem to be experiencing a huge amount of problems with our communication channels. Our calls don't seem to be coming through or reaching us. There seems to be a blockage on at the moment. If we put anything up on Facebook, nobody sees it. When people ring our mobiles, it says that the number doesn't exist. So I think the best way for people to reach us now is on WhatsApp. So if you can post our mobile number, which you have, it's probably the best way to do it.
Okay, I'll put that in the description.
Or if they ring, just to keep trying. They'll eventually get through. And it's not us not answering the phone. It's just the problems we are having at the moment.
Our calls have been intercepted and interfered with.
Why?
For whatever reason.
You're just doing beautiful work on this planet. Why is this being intercepted?
It's at the level now where some people are trying to reach us for a week, and it's taking them that long to get through. I suppose it's worrying and upsetting for us, because we know that there's people out there that are in need. It may be a life or death situation, and they can't get through to us.
Yeah.
Which is sad, really. All we're trying to do is help.
Yeah, and we've gone from 200 calls a day to virtually zilch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, calls, texts, emails, etc.,
Yeah.
to, our
Everything. I would get messages and calls all day, all night long. The phone literally never stopped. And now I could leave my phone and nothing will come through.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We worked, I suppose, in hospitals across the country for quite some time, even late at night, and we don't get any calls now from hospitals, which is very, very unusual. And like you said earlier, even our the volume drops, and
yeah, they can even wipe out my reception on my phone.
Yeah.
Fully.
Mm-hmm.
It'll tell me that I've no network at all.
Yeah.
So why is this? Do they not want people to realize that we do have this innate ability to heal? And I just question what the purpose of this is, Well,
why would you think?
Yeah.
Well, that would be my guess.
Yeah.
So we really need to question these things and look for ourselves.
All we want to do out there is to help, whether it be serious illness or whatever, just to help. I remember being in working down in Brazil, in South America, on a beach down there called Imbatuba, and a lady called. An elderly lady walked over to me as I strolled along the beach, and I could see that she had a serious problem with her arm or shoulder. And she just walked up to me and held her arm out like this, and I did a little bit of work, and between speaking a little bit of Spanish or Portuguese or whatever, we were able to understand that she had an injury of some kind. And after I'd worked with her, she just turned and walked and waved. Yeah.
With the hand that had difficulty. Yeah.
Yes. This young lady of about 70 or whatever at the time must have had some intuition or whatever. I'd never seen her in my life, and never seen her since, but she was able to wave and with her injured arm.
But it's no different to when we're sitting out maybe having a coffee and wild animals will come up and sit down at Mathew's feet. And Mathew will do whatever work they need, and they'll just get up and walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They just
Incredible.
They know.
They know.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah.
Well, Mathew, it's been such a gift to talk to you today, and I will include the WhatsApp phone number for anyone that wants to get hold of you and share this information far and wide, whoever resonates with it. This is where this is what we need to do.
And not everyone will, of course, but it's something that some people out there will tune into, and we have open days. We do open days where we would maybe have 20, 30,000 tune in to our open days, and
just online.
We would get a feedback on there from there, and the feedback was very positive. But after those open days,
our first open day online, we had I think 30,000 tune into our first one.
Yeah.
And after that, every time we have attempted to do a live open session, our network, internet, everything drops.
Wow. Well, I tuned into that one. I did, because I wanted to experience Mathew, and I walked around for 2 days with that, that very high vibration feeling of love in every cell.
Yeah.
That
Very good.
I have to say that I really, you helped me up my vibration, and it was obvious. And I had a back issue, something, I had tweaked my back in the barn, and that completely resolved.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, very good. But you have a sensitivity that most people aren't aware of. But there are others out there who probably could tune in, and if they allowed themselves to tune in, maybe they could get the same type of results. I hope they do.
Well, I've practiced in order to, like, I know when I'm at, my vibration's high, when it's low. I'm aware, but it's
of course.
that everyone can become aware of. There's no reason why not. And I encourage that too.
Of course. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. You are doing so much for this planet and so many. I just want to say how grateful I am, and many, many more out there. And I want to say to everyone out there, don't give away your power to anyone else. Just go be you and be the wave.